I've been married to my wife, Jennifer, for the past 5 years. We met each other for the first time when we were both working at the same company. What started as a professional acquaintance quickly blossomed into a deep connection, and after 2 years of dating, we decided to tie the knot. Jennifer is, without a doubt, absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. I know that might sound like an exaggeration, but it's the truth. My wife has this natural beauty that turns heads wherever she goes, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard people, both friends and strangers, mention just how stunning she is. It's something that other men have often pointed out to me, almost as if they're in awe that I'm the lucky guy who gets to call her my wife. But, to be honest, it's never really bothered me. If anything, I take pride in it. For me, it's not just about her physical appearance. Jennifer is beautiful inside and out. She has this incredible energy, a confidence that radiates from within. She's also incredibly smart, driven, and kind. She's the whole package, and I'm grateful every day that we found each other. And one of the things I love most about her is that she's just as passionate about fitness as I am. Going to the gym and maintaining my own fitness has always been important to me, so it's amazing to have a partner who values the same things. We both share a love for staying active and taking care of our bodies, and that's something that has strengthened our bond over the years. Whether we're hitting the gym for a workout, going for a run, or trying out new fitness challenges, it's something that keeps us connected and motivated. It's a part of our relationship that I really cherish. So, while people might see Jennifer's beauty first, I'm lucky enough to know the amazing woman behind it. She has been my partner, my best friend, and someone who has inspired me to be my best self every day since the time we met. This year brought a significant change for Jennifer and me. She was offered a position at another company, one that came with a very high salary and an incredible opportunity for her career growth. When she first told me about the offer, I couldn't have been more proud of her. She's always been hardworking and ambitious, and this job seemed like the perfect next step for her career. Even though it meant we would no longer be working at the same company, I encouraged her to accept the position. I knew it was a chance she couldn't pass up, and I wanted to support her in every way I could. From the moment she started at her new job, Jennifer was filled with excitement. She would come home every evening with stories about her coworkers, her boss, and all the interesting things that happened throughout her day. I loved hearing about her experiences. It was clear that she was thriving in her new environment, and that made me really happy. However, with her new job came some changes to our daily routine also. Her work hours are different from mine now, which means I usually get home earlier than she does. Hence, I've taken on the responsibility of cooking dinner each night, which I actually enjoy. It's become a way for me to unwind after my day and do something nice for Jennifer. After dinner, she handles washing the dishes, which is a small way for us to share the household chores. During dinners, we sit down, enjoy the meal I've prepared, and talk about our days. Whether she's sharing the latest office gossip or I'm telling her about something funny that happened at work, these conversations are a way for us to stay connected despite our busy schedules. After dinner, we often settle in for the evening by watching a movie or just spending quiet time together. Sometimes, we'll pick a movie we've both been wanting to see, and other times we'll just relax and chat, enjoying each other's company. It's these moments, the everyday, ordinary ones, that I cherish the most. They remind me of why I fell in love with Jennifer in the first place and how grateful I am to have her in my life. However, about 2 months into Jennifer's new job, I started noticing some changes in her that caught me off guard. It wasn't just one thing, but a series of small, subtle shifts in her behavior and appearance that, when added up, made me feel like something was different. For as long as I've known Jennifer, she's always had a particular style when it came to her work attire. She's a professional through and through, and she's always dressed the part. Typically, she would wear a well-tailored suit or something similarly appropriate for the office. But suddenly, that changed. She began wearing outfits that seemed a bit more revealing or, to put it another way, less conservative than what I was used to seeing her in. Instead of her usual suits, she started opting for sleeveless tops and other pieces that showed a bit more skin. Now, I'm not exactly an expert when it comes to women's fashion, and I've always believed that Jennifer has every right to dress in a way that makes her feel confident and comfortable. I know that fashion is personal, and I've never felt it was my place to comment on what she chooses to wear. So, I didn't say anything about it. I just quietly observed and kept my opinions to myself. Around the same time, I noticed that Jennifer started waking up much earlier than she used to, about 2 hours earlier, in fact, to get ready for the office. It wasn't just the early rise that caught my attention, but what she was doing with that extra time. She began spending a lot more time getting ready for work, meticulously applying makeup, and paying particular attention to her appearance. One thing that really stood out to me was her sudden affinity for red lipstick. Now, here's the thing. In all the years we've been together, Jennifer has never been one to wear red lipstick. Even at parties or special events, she would always go for more neutral or subtle shades. In her words, red was just never her color, or at least that's what she used to say. So, seeing her suddenly embrace this bold choice was, well, a bit surprising. I couldn't help but feel curious about what might have prompted this change, but again, I kept my thoughts to myself. I figured maybe she was just experimenting with new styles or trying out a different look for her new job. After all, people change and evolve, and I didn't want to jump to any conclusions. The next thing that really caught my attention was when Jennifer started packing lunch for 2 people instead of just for herself. Now, both Jennifer and I are really into eating healthy, and to make things easier during the week, I've always taken on the task of meal prepping for both of us over the weekend. It's something I enjoy doing, and it ensures we have nutritious meals ready to go, without the need to cook during our busy workdays. I've always kept a close count of our meals, making sure we had just the right amount to last us through the week. But then, I started noticing that our prepped meals were depleting faster than usual. At first, I didn't think much of it. I just figured maybe we were both eating a bit more or that I'd miscounted somehow. However, when I found myself needing to cook additional meals midweek, a situation that shouldn't have happened if I had prepped enough food, I realized something was off. One evening, I decided to bring it up with Jennifer. I casually asked her if she was feeling hungrier lately or if perhaps she was taking extra lunches to work. I tried to make it sound as light as possible, not wanting to seem accusatory or overly concerned. After all, it was just food, and I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. To my surprise, Jennifer seemed a bit hesitant at first, but then she admitted that she had been packing lunch for a coworker. She explained that there was someone in her office who didn't like to eat much and often skipped meals. Jennifer, being the kind and considerate person she is, didn't want her coworkers to go hungry, so she started taking an extra meal to share with them. I understood where she was coming from. It's just like Jennifer to want to take care of others, and I admire her for that. She never elaborated anything about this so-called coworker, and I never asked. I simply told her that it was fine, and from the next weekend on, I made sure to prep more meals so that Jennifer could continue taking lunch for her coworker without us running out of food at home. Even though I made these adjustments without fuss, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it. The changes were too sudden, too out of character for the Jennifer I knew so well. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, and I certainly didn't want to come across as controlling or judgmental. But deep down, I couldn't help but wonder what was really going on with my wife. Then, the biggest red flag came up when one night Jennifer and I were sitting down for dinner, talking about our day as usual. I started telling her about something that had happened at work. One of my coworkers had just discovered that his wife had been cheating on him. The news had devastated him, and as his friend, I couldn't help but feel terrible for him. I shared with Jennifer how sad and heartbroken he was, and how all of us at work felt bad for him. We were all shocked that his wife had destroyed their family for what seemed like her own selfish reasons. I thought it was just another conversation, but something I said must have struck a nerve with Jennifer. Instead of sharing my sympathy for the guy, she suddenly became defensive, arguing that maybe it was the husband's fault. She suggested that perhaps the wife had been unhappy for a long time, and that's why she cheated. This completely threw me off. It wasn't the reaction I was expecting from Jennifer at all. Trying to make sense of her response, I calmly pointed out that if the wife was that unhappy, she could have chosen to leave the marriage rather than stay with her husband and betray him like that. To me, it seemed clear that cheating was a cowardly and selfish way to handle things. But Jennifer didn't see it that way. She argued back, saying that sometimes people don't have the courage to leave because they're still unsure. I couldn't help but scoff when I heard that. I told her that in my opinion, people who cheat are just cowards who don't deserve loyal partners. I was simply expressing my opinion and we weren't even arguing, but she seemed deeply offended. Jennifer's voice rose as she told me that not everyone can be brave and that sometimes people make mistakes because they're scared about their decisions. Then, before I could even fully process what was happening, she stormed off, leaving me sitting there, dumbfounded and confused. I was left staring at my half-finished dinner, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I had no idea why Jennifer was so bothered by this conversation, but it made me question what was really going on with her. I couldn't help but wonder if there was something she wasn't telling me, something that might explain the changes I've been noticing over the past few months. This wasn't the Jennifer I knew, and it made me feel like there was a distance growing between us, a gap that I didn't know how to bridge. Then things became worse between us after that night. It was like a switch had been flipped, and the connection we once had began to fade. Jennifer, who had always been so present and engaged in our life together, started to drift away. She began spending less and less time with me, and her behavior became increasingly distant. She would come home unusually late, well past the time I'd expect her back from work. I'd sit there, waiting for her, hoping we could still have dinner together as we always did. But when she finally walked through the door, she wasn't interested in talking much with me, and when she did, it was clear her mind was somewhere else. Our conversations became forced and awkward. I also noticed that Jennifer was spending a lot more time on her phone or disappearing into the washroom for long stretches. It wasn't like her to be so secretive, and it only added to the growing sense of unease I was feeling. I'm a simple, straightforward guy. I've never been the type to play detective or dwell on suspicions. But as the days went on, it became harder and harder to ignore the signs that something was wrong. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know what was going on, so I confronted Jennifer directly. I asked her if she was cheating on me. I tried to be calm and rational about it. I didn't want to beat around the bush or let my suspicions fester in silence. When I asked her, Jennifer's reaction was immediate and defensive. She argued that I had no right to accuse her of something so vile, and she seemed genuinely hurt by my question. She told me that she wasn't having an affair, but that she was just going through a lot at work and dealing with work-related stress. She insisted that this was just a phase she was going through since she was still taking time to adjust in her new company and that she would be fine once things settled down. Despite her explanation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Her defensiveness only made me more suspicious, but I didn't want to push her too hard. I decided to keep my mouth shut for the time being, even though my instincts were telling me that something wasn't right. The next day, Jennifer herself approached me and apologized for how things had been between us. She acknowledged that she had been neglecting me in our relationship, and she promised that she would do better. Her apology seemed sincere, and for a moment, I wanted to believe that maybe she was telling the truth, that it really was just a rough patch at work and nothing more. Then, one evening, everything changed when I received an unexpected call from a close friend. He asked me if I knew where Jennifer was, and his question caught me off guard. My friend isn't the type to meddle in other people's business, so the fact that he was reaching out like this immediately raised red flags. It was late during a workday, and I had assumed Jennifer was still at the office, finishing up some last-minute tasks or maybe working late, as she sometimes did. But then my friend told me something that made my heart sink. He told me how he had seen Jennifer at a restaurant, having dinner with another man. According to my friend, they seemed unusually close, and it wasn't just a casual dinner between colleagues. He mentioned that Jennifer was laughing, leaning in close, and even stroking the man's hand in a way that didn't seem appropriate for someone who was just a coworker. He told me that under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have thought to call me, but given how intimate they appeared, he felt compelled to let me know. I thanked him for telling me, even though I could barely process what he was saying. After we hung up, I felt a wave of unease wash over me. My friend then sent me a subtle picture he had managed to take of Jennifer with the guy at the restaurant. When I looked at the photo, my heart sank further. Jennifer was smiling and she was clearly comfortable with this man. There was something familiar about him that I couldn't quite place. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd seen this guy before, but I couldn't pinpoint where or when. That night, when Jennifer finally came home, I decided to play it cool. I asked her if she wanted to have dinner with me like we usually did. Without much thought, she shook her head and casually mentioned that she had already eaten at a team dinner with her coworkers. I kept my tone light and nonchalant, asking how many people were at this dinner, just to see what she would say. She didn't hesitate before responding, telling me that almost all of her coworkers were there. It was at that moment that I realized that my wife was lying to me. She clearly had something to hide, otherwise she would have had no issues telling me about having dinner with a mysterious man. I kept my mouth shut and pretended everything was fine. But inside, I was determined to get to the bottom of this. The Jennifer I knew wouldn't have lied to me so easily, and I needed to know who that man was, what he meant to her, and why she was keeping this part of her life hidden from me. That night, after Jennifer went to bed early, claiming she was tired from drinking too much at her team dinner. As I watched her sleep, the weight of everything that had happened in the past few weeks pressed down on me, and I knew I had to find out the truth. Quietly, I waited until she was deep in sleep before carefully taking her phone from the nightstand. I noticed right away that she had changed her password, which was unusual since we always were both pretty open about our devices and had no secrets. I knew I had to get into her phone somehow. Now, Jennifer is a very forgetful person, so I was certain that she would have chosen something simple as her password, something she could easily remember. My heart was pounding as I tried to recall the usual combinations she might use: birthdays, anniversaries, or even her parents' birthdays. I went through the list in my head, trying each one with trembling hands, praying that I could crack the password before the phone got disabled. Luckily, My fourth attempt worked and the screen unlocked. I knew I was crossing a line, but I felt like I had no choice. I needed to know what was going on, even if it meant invading her privacy. With my heart racing, I scrolled through her messages, dreading what I might find. I noticed she had been sending multiple messages to someone named Mark. They talked regularly and even exchanged selfies. I read through the messages and realized that he also worked at her company. Then, I clicked on Mark's contact information to check his profile picture, but as soon as I did, everything finally clicked. This was Mark, the very same guy Jennifer had dated back in high school. They had been high school sweethearts, inseparable until he had to go abroad because of his family's decision. I remembered Jennifer telling me about him when we first started dating. She shared how they had tried to make the long-distance relationship work, but eventually, they had to give up because the distance was too much to handle. It was a story from her past, one that I had thought was long behind us. But here he was, back in her life, and it was clear from the messages that their connection had rekindled. My hands shook as I read through their conversation, each word feeling like a dagger to my heart. They weren't just catching up like old friends, they were talking in a way that made it clear there was something more between them now. The way they addressed each other, the way they reminisced about old times, and the way they talked about their feelings, it was all too much to bear. My wife sent him a morning selfie every day after she would get ready for work, and he would reply back saying how beautiful she looked. They had also sent some inappropriate messages to each other which made me almost puke. The worst part was that there were a few pictures of them in a hotel bed, just kissing and gazing into each other's eyes. It was like a nightmare coming to life. The woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, was cheating on me. I felt a wave of betrayal, anger, and sadness wash over me as I realized that everything had changed. Jennifer hadn't just been hiding this from me, she had been lying to me, to my face, while she rekindled something with a man from her past. I took screenshots of all her chats with me and sent them to my phone. I then wiped off the evidence from her end so she would never find out that I now had evidence of her cheating. I carefully placed her phone back on the nightstand, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. I wanted to burst out crying, but despite everything I had uncovered, there was still a very small part of me that hoped that maybe, just maybe, Jennifer still cared about me and wasn't really going to leave me for this guy. I didn't want to believe that our years together could be so easily discarded. I wanted to fight for our relationship, for us. So, for the next few days, I kept to myself, trying to come to terms with the facts about her affair. As much as I wanted to give up, I still loved Jennifer and wanted to see things through. During this time, I was quiet and distant, and I could tell that Jennifer noticed something was off. But she never asked me anything about it. She just didn't seem concerned about me any longer. Then, about a week later, Jennifer told me that she had a work trip coming up. I pointed out how this work trip coincidentally fell during our anniversary, hoping to get some kind of reaction from her, something that would show she still cared about us. In my head, I had been planning to host a small party with our family and friends, something to remind us of the bond we shared, to remind her of the life we had built together. I had been with her through so much, standing by her side through thick and thin, and I couldn't understand how she could so easily push me aside for the other guy. Jennifer claimed she had no idea that our anniversary was coming up, which hurt more than I could put into words. How could she forget something so important to us? She offered a half-hearted apology, saying she was sorry to miss it, but then seeing my disappointment, she immediately backtracked, saying that she would talk to her boss and try to come back home one day before our anniversary so we could celebrate it together. I told her about my plan to invite some of our family members and friends, and she immediately agreed, telling me that it was a great idea. Hearing her reaction, I felt hopeful, so I went ahead and invited people as planned. Throughout Jennifer's so-called work trip, every time I called or messaged her, she would ignore me. It wasn't like her to be so distant, and as each day passed, my worry grew. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. In a desperate attempt to understand what was going on, I decided to turn to social media. I didn't have much to go on, but I knew Mark's full name and figured he might have an Instagram profile. I didn't know if he was on this work trip with Jennifer or not, but I needed to know more. After some searching, I found his profile and started to stalk it, my heart pounding with every click. Imagine my shock, my devastation, when I saw Jennifer in his Instagram stories. He had posted several clips and photos from the trip, and while there were a few other coworkers in some of the shots, the ones that stood out, the ones that made my blood run cold, were the ones of him and Jennifer. They were together in most of them, smiling, laughing, kissing each other on the cheek, looking far too comfortable, far too close. They looked like a couple. My heart shattered as I scrolled through each story. My worst fears were confirmed. I realized at that moment that I had truly lost my wife. I didn't want to see any more of their pictures together, and I didn't want Mark to see that I had viewed his stories. The last thing I needed was for him to tell Jennifer that I had been stalking his profile. So, I blocked him, hoping that I could delete those pictures from my head as well. Throughout the night, I cried myself to sleep. Currently, as I sit here and write this, I feel utterly betrayed and defeated. Our anniversary is tomorrow and my wife is supposed to come home today. I don't know how I can face her and celebrate with her after she has been shamelessly out having an affair with another man. Will I be an a-hole if I cancel our anniversary party tomorrow as I feel like there's nothing left to celebrate? Update 1. Wow, in just a matter of a few hours, I have received hundreds of DMs from people on Reddit. I would like to thank each and every one of you for checking up on me and assuring me that I can go ahead and cancel the anniversary party if I want to. I did send out a group text earlier saying that the party is cancelled, however people have been calling me and asking if something is wrong. I don't have the heart to tell anyone anything until I have confronted Jennifer. Today, when my wife returned from her work trip, she was really upset with me for canceling the party without discussing it with her first. She believes some of our family members now think something is up. I've tried to bring up the work trip to get her to talk about Mark, but she is stonewalling me and keeps saying that we can talk about her trip after the party. She has been insisting to me that we go ahead with the party as originally planned. Update 2. It's been a week since I last updated. I listened to some of your advice and decided to be petty just like my wife and to teach her a lesson. I agreed to host the party as planned and asked her to re-invite everyone. Throughout the event, I watched her mingle with our family and friends, playing the role of the perfect wife in front of everyone. When it was my turn to give a speech to thank everyone for coming to our anniversary party, I decided to use this opportunity to reveal the truth. I'm not one for theatrics, so I spoke plainly. I told everyone that this was going to be our last anniversary party since I had discovered my wife had been having an affair with Mark, her high school sweetheart, for months. Jennifer froze when she heard my words, looking like a deer caught in headlights. I told the guests that I had seen all her messages, inappropriate pictures they had sent to each other, and photos of them together in a hotel room. I explained that even after discovering all this, I still wanted to give her a chance, but after her behavior during her work trip where she spent all her time with Mark, I was pretty much done with her. Everyone was shocked by what I had revealed. My mother, visibly upset, began yelling at Jennifer, demanding to know if it was true. Even Jennifer's own parents, who had always liked me, pressed her to speak up. In the end, my wife broke down in front of everyone. She admitted to everything and begged for my forgiveness, saying that she had foolishly gone with the flow and didn't know how to stop things with Mark as she just felt so comfortable around him. She admitted that she met him a few months ago when he joined her team at her new workplace after returning from abroad and that they had been sleeping together for months behind my back. She then went on to claim that she couldn't tell me the truth since I was the only love of her life and she didn't want to lose me. I just shook my head in disappointment as I then announced to everyone that I would be divorcing Jennifer since I could no longer live my life with someone who was this shameless. There was not even one single word of protest as everyone agreed with me. Ever since then, I have kicked Jennifer out of my place. She is furious with me for exposing her in front of everyone and for turning our anniversary party into her farewell party. She has continued to reach out to me several times in hopes that I would give our marriage another try, but I have chosen to completely ignore her. Update 3. I have finally found a great lawyer who is going to make sure that I won't have to pay a dime to Jennifer during our divorce. He's confident that, given the evidence of her cheating and the fact that we don't have kids, the divorce will be pretty straightforward. For those asking about my mental health, I guess I am still processing everything, but I do feel at peace with my decision to leave my wife. Thanks to the support from my family, I'm no longer feeling scared of my decision. I think I'm going to be okay.